Hello, everybody. So, as I've mentioned before, there's some changes and new things I've been wanting to bring to the channel since about the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, and today you're about to find out one of those things. I got to talk with a believer today. Her name is Hailey Van Meel, and you're about to see an entire talk of us mainly going over our experiences in the New Age, leaving the New Age, finding Christ, the search for truth, and basically our perspectives in between. Now, this isn't one of those debate videos, so if you're looking for a hard debate or a back and forth, you're in the wrong place. This is just something I've wanted to do for a while, where I talk with different believers, understand their positions a little more, and I don't want to do it with just people in Christianity. I would enjoy doing it with occultists as well, whether you're a New Ager, a Muslim, you follow Reiki, hell, you're even into the Golden Dawn like I used to be. Either way, though, if you're interested, without further ado, and here we are. So today we have Hailey Van Meel, and we're going to be talking about a little bit about the New Age, occult, spirituality, things like that. Her and I both have a background in that. We have both since left that. I don't know when you have, but my viewers definitely know about my past a little bit. And we both ended up in different places, as I ended up in atheism and she is a Christian. I don't know which specific type, but Hailey, go on and talk about where you've been before the New Age, what it was like within it, and where you are now.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm actually really excited about this because I think it's cool when people have different views and they're able to talk about it in a civil way. So I appreciate you setting this up and everything. And I'm curious about your story too and how you got where you are.
I'll definitely go over that a little bit today.
Yeah, cool. So basically, I grew up, my parents went to Catholic school, which they weren't practicing Catholic, but we would go to Catholic church sometimes. I was baptized Catholic and I did the first communion and everything like that, but it didn't really stick, like I said, because they didn't really practice it. I call it Chreaster people, people who only go on Christmas and Easter.
Oh, I like that. We used to call it, I think what my family called it was just like lukewarm Christians, which my mom and dad were, but the rest of the family called it like my grandmother, she was like, oh, they're just lukewarm Christians, or I think she also said backsliders. But I
Yeah.
like your term the best. I've never heard that before.
Yes. Yeah, I don't remember where I got that from, but lukewarm works too. So for me, growing up, I believing in God was a very simple thing. It wasn't like a very talked about thing in my family. It was kind of like, yeah, I believe in God, but I was always very I don't know, the spiritual things of life were always really interesting to me, even as a kid. And as I got older, because I didn't really have, it wasn't like my parents were strict in religion or anything like that. I was interested in all of it. I was interested in anything that was spiritual. And I don't know how deep you want me to go into my story, but I
I
started
do. I
to,
do want to say, um, I definitely can relate to what you were just saying, and um, as of one of the questions you already know that I'm going to ask eventually, I think that that's one of the reasons that some people end up moving into the New Age is because they'll have other family members or people that they're around that aren't as interested in the deeper meanings. I remember I had friends who we'd go to a sermon and they'd bring up John chapter 5, and they'd just talk about it like it's normally spoken about at church. And I'd be like, well, hey, did you know, like at lunch afterwards, I'd be like, hey, did you know that this word means this? And if you break it down to this, and I would give it the deeper meaning. And they're just like, I don't really care about that. And so I honestly think that that's one of the reasons that people do get into that New Age spiritualist side, because those people, are actively looking into like deeper meanings of things like that. Would you agree?
yeah, absolutely. Because I noticed that the people around me, the adults and stuff, they just kind of accept it it just is what it is. Like life is just it just is what it is, and I couldn't accept that. I'm like there has to be a deeper meaning to things. It can't just be just what it
What
is.
it
So
is.
yes.
That's what it's going to be. No argument about it.
Yeah, yes. And I wasn't really encouraged to question things, but I couldn't help myself. So I have the same mindset where it's like I want to like break things down and really understand them and not be attached. Like I don't want to be attached to being right, but I want to know the truth, regardless of what that means. If that means I have to change, if that means I have to completely ditch something, I will, because I don't want to be living in falsehood just because I'm prideful and want to, like, don't want to admit that I'm wrong about something. You know what I
That's
mean?
an honest position to have.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I, I think that's important because if we live in an incorrect mindset, it can be very dangerous. So,
A point I always like to make is that that feeling that being wrong feels just like being right. It feels exactly the same. It's like having lettuce in your teeth. You'll walk around all day and you don't feel it, but then someone's like, "Hey, you got something
you
right there,"
have
and you're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
grab
And
it
that's
out."
a real one when they tell you you have food in your teeth, right? That's
Yeah,
a friend you want to keep around, is when they tell you the truth.
exactly. Not someone that just
Um,
lets you walk around and embarrass yourself.
yeah, exactly. So,
But yeah, you were on you were saying that basically those around you weren't as into the deeper meanings that you were searching for, and that's the part of your story that you were into. I'm still interested in the rest of it, but I always go on little tangents. It's something normal that I do. Sorry about
yeah,
that.
I do the same. It's okay. I totally get it. I think that's how a conversation is, um, or should be. But yeah, so I always ask the hard questions, and a lot of times I didn't really get answers to them. But when I was in junior high, I had a friend who she was like, "Oh, my grandma's a psychic. Like she can tell you who you're gonna marry." And
Oh
I mean,
man,
I didn't, I was, it was interesting, but at the same time, I wasn't thinking about stuff like that when I was in junior high. I was like, it was so far off for me,
it used to
but it was
freak me
really interesting.
out. I'd see
What's
tarot
that?
cards in my friends' houses, and I would want to go home. I'd like call my mom, and I'm like, they've got tarot cards over here. You gotta get me out of here.
Like, that's so funny. I I was the opposite. I thought it was very interesting and excited me. So I met her. She gave me a very detailed description of who this person would be and what he would be like. And I mean, because she told me I was going to meet him in college, so it was so far off that I was like, okay, like whatever. But it was in the back of my mind because I believed in that kind of thing. I believed that people could, and I don't know where that came from. I don't know why I believed that, but
You could tap into something like that.
yeah, yeah. And so let's see. So from what I'm understanding, I was talking with a friend about this last night, is that when we participate in things like that, it opens doorways for because there's spiritual laws. So like a demon or whatever can't just come into your life. It has to be invited
You have
in
to
through
invite
a
them in.
door.
You have to unlock the door.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And it's the same way with God. It's the same way with Jesus. You have to open the door. So they can't just come into your life just because they want to,
Yeah.
basically. So, around that same time, I started to have paranormal type experiences. And because I would see it on TV, I would see, kids my age they had these gifts, and they would see dead people, they would have these predictions, just stuff like that.
Really high
And
levels of intuition.
yeah,
Keep getting it
yes,
right and right and right.
yes. And so I was like, okay, this is normal. Like, this is something that happens to people. But no one around me was really experiencing it. But it didn't scare me because it wasn't anything that was like, they weren't threatening in a sense, like things would fall off my nightstand, or I would feel like someone was touching me, or my door handle would shake, or things like that. And I was always very sensitive to people, to their emotions, to how they felt. I could walk into a room and I could feel everything that was going on, and I would
You could
be
get
a
the vibe
mess.
even before you'd walk in sometimes.
Yep. I would get anxious. I'm like, oh, I don't want to go, or something's gonna happen. Like I always had that kind of thing. So, um, let's see. So I started to look into like astrology and stuff like that. I was searching for a sense of identity. I always felt like, I wanted to know who I was, why I was here, why people are the way they are. Like I just always wanted to understand those things. Um, and so astrology would give me like, I would read in astrology. I'm in Aries, right? And I related with a lot of what it said, but then there was also things that I didn't relate to. But there was enough truth in it that it made me want to seek deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's a rabbit hole in
Yeah.
and of itself to search astrology.
Astrology can
So
get deep. You can get into like the birth charts where you've got the different angles from Pluto and
yep,
Chiron, and you measure
yep,
this and at this time and this planet in this sign in this house, and it's like this means this, and
yep,
it gets pretty what's the word? I guess detailed. It
yep.
definitely gets detailed.
Yes, absolutely. And it can be really interesting to see, the last time this planet was here with this planet, this happened, so that's why this is happening. And you could see correlations to like
Have
what's
you
going
seen that
on.
meme floating around recently? The one about, I think it's like Pluto was in this, Mars was in this, and Neptune was in this the last time they were like, and that's why the riots are going on. Is that what you're talking about? Ah, I've seen it 3 times in the past 24 hours.
Yes, exactly. So it's like, okay, I can see where why people believe in it. And it was just very interesting to me. And I would also look into like dream interpretations and stuff like that. I would, if I had a dream about, let's say, like a raccoon or whatever, I would get on Google and I'm like, what does it mean to dream about a raccoon? I just always wanted to understand the deeper meaning of something. So as I got older, when I got into high school, I started to kind of suppress those things, and I became depressed. I became very anxious and just confused and angry because I always had, when I was a kid, I had this like innocence about me, but I started to see like the corruption in the world and stuff, and it started to make me bitter. And I started to drink a lot. I I was a party girl. I didn't really, I'd be sitting in the back of the class, like staring out the window, thinking about life. I didn't really, I didn't apply myself in school or anything, but I was there for the social aspect. I wanted to hang out with my friends. And so I went to college and I went for physical therapy. I wanted to be a physical therapist. And my freshman year, I the partying and stuff just got worse because I wasn't at home with my parents. I didn't have my mom, like, where are you? What are you doing? Are you drinking right now? I didn't have her as like my conscience when I was in college.
You were on your own leash at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, because she she didn't know where I was or what I was
Yeah.
doing or anything like that. So but I mean, not surprising, my depression got worse. I mean, you can't really drink that much and not get more depressed. And so I started smoking weed with a friend of mine, and it started out, every
And that's
once in
when
a
you
while.
opened your third eye.
Yeah, yes, exactly. um, yeah, it started out like every once in a while, and then it turned into like several times a day, where it was like that was all that we were doing. Wake up, smoke, go get
Go eat,
breakfast.
smoke, go to the
Yep,
bathroom, smoke. Hey,
smoke. Yep.
we're going up to the store. Hold on. I need to hit this before I go inside.
Well, yep, exactly. And I mean, we had fun, but it's not very productive. So,
Yeah.
but that started to open up my mind more. I started to think about, ask a lot more of like the deeper questions again. Because when I was a kid, I was like that, but in high school, I kind of
Set it to
stopped
the
doing.
side for a second.
Yeah, because I don't know. I'm not sure why, but um,
It could be that astrology thing.
It could be. Yeah, what was going on during that time in my life? Where were the planets, right?
Yeah. Gotta look back now.
So, let's see. So I started to have the paranormal experiences again when I was in college. And these were much more intense and it was things that I couldn't explain. Sometimes something happens, you're like, oh, that's a ghost, but then it was like, oh no, like you can have an explanation for it.
You
But
got curtains moving, but there's like a vent on the floor under it. And
yeah,
then you have these
yeah,
other ones where you're like, you've gone through the list of every possible explanation. You've crossed them out. You're like, it. What else is it to be?
yeah, yeah. So like an example, I had my phone in my room and I was upstairs. And when I came back down, I had pictures of like orbs on it, like at the bottom of the screen. And there was a few of them, like they were saved on my phone from Snapchat. And I was trying to figure, I'm like, did I do this? Like,
Did I
but
save it or did I take this? Yeah.
yeah, and it was like the angle, it was just very weird. And so there was a lot of experiences that I would have like that. I had people visiting me in my dreams where they were like in my room and then I woke up and I don't know, just some really weird stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to explain it. I didn't know, but I did know what the Bible said about stuff like that. And now understanding, and I was talking with a friend about this last night, and she was telling me that it wasn't me, it the spirits that I was being influenced by opened these doors for these spirits. They didn't want me to go to church because if I did, then they would have been able to explain it to me from a biblical standpoint. But I didn't want to go there. I didn't. I was like, I'm going to avoid going to church because they're going to tell me that I'm possessed. And I didn't want them to tell me that. I didn't want them to say that to me because I didn't know I didn't know anything really about how that works or anything. So I got connected with a person who is a practicing medium. She's a hypnotherapist. She's an energy healer. I don't know if you're familiar with
Yeah.
Reiki and
Reiki.
all that stuff. Yeah. Yeah. So she practiced all of that stuff. And I found a sense of relief because I was going crazy. I was like, I don't know what's going on. And my sensitivity came back. I was very sensitive to everything. I had a hard time being around people because, that person over there, maybe they have a smile on their face, but I knew that there was something going on with them and I was taking it on as my own
It'd wear you
emotion.
down.
Yes, and it was really hard. So when I met this woman, she was able to give me some answers. And I mean, now from my understanding, they weren't true. But at the time, it gave me a sense of relief. It gave me a little bit of peace. Um, and so I started to practice like reading tarot cards. I would do that every day. And I started practicing Reiki as well. She told me that it would help with my depression, my anxiety. And so I got, what do you call it, attuned. I got,
Yeah.
I did the classes and stuff.
Did they do it okay? Because I know they do it two ways nowadays. They do it obviously in person, but there's like a new method. I don't know how old this method is, but where they do it like not like over online, but they have like a picture of you and they do it from like a distance.
Yeah.
Did you have one of those or the in person? I haven't had either done.
The classes that I did were in person, but I had sessions and I did sessions as well over the phone
Okay.
or online.
So that was a
So
part of your attunement.
yeah, the attunement was in person.
Okay.
But
How did
because
it
I had,
feel?
how did it feel?
Yeah.
The
I was
first
gonna
time
get
I got
tuned, but I didn't, so I have no
it,
clue how that feels.
praise God. It's um the first time that I had somebody put their hands, the Reiki master put her hands on my head, and it felt warm, and I felt this like comforting feeling like start to kind of pour over my head. And I didn't want her to remove her hands. I was like, oh my goodness. Wow. Like it felt really
Just
good.
stay there.
Yes, like just hang out here, and so I started to like because I believe that it was helping me, so I started to share that with other people. I started to charge people for sessions, whether it was tarot card reading or energy work. I did start practicing mediumship as well, because that was something she mentioned to me because I was having all these paranormal experiences. She was telling me that they were trying to talk to me. And so I
Like, I
started to
better pick
invite
up the phone.
yeah, exactly. And so I started to invite these spirits to use my vessel, to use my body. Like I was saying, it's, you know, the doors. You have to allow them and be in agreement with them for that to happen. So I started to see changes in myself and my character that I never thought that I would. I started to become a person that I really didn't like. Um, Very angry, self-centered. And I can't, I don't want to blame everything and be like, oh, it was all the demons. Like, I don't want to do
Yeah.
that. However, I do know that they do have influence. And, and, but on my part, I invited these things and I welcomed them and I was in agreement with them. And so I became suicidal, which I was always depressed, but I was never suicidal because I was like that. I couldn't do that to my family. I couldn't do that to the people around me. And it wasn't that bad, but I became suicidal to the point that I was afraid to be alone with myself because I didn't have any self-control. I felt like,
You didn't want it to go wrong, of course.
yeah, yeah. Um,
Hey, I'm glad it didn't go wrong for you.
Me too. Me too. Yeah. So, mm. so I just remember feeling very, especially with mediumship, I would feel like violated afterwards. And in the new age community, I mean, not everyone, but a lot of people would tell me that it was something that I was doing wrong. Whether I wasn't like praying right, or, I mean, imagining yourself in a white bubble really doesn't do anything. It doesn't protect you, like, it doesn't save you.
Yeah,
The
I make a big point about the whole when it comes to these ideas. I did a video on law of attraction, and I mentioned basically the four main pillars that hold up that spiritual idea. And the big problem with that, and also other new age ideas, is that you're the pivot point. You're at the center. They'll teach you that you can heal your parents of whatever cancer that they have, and then you're the thing in the middle that decides whether that goes right or wrong. If it went right, your magic or your attraction or whatever you did, it was correct. But if it didn't, you did something wrong, and I can't stand that, because
Yeah.
we can't actually see if, like, you burning a candle or meditating on an idea can put someone's cancer into remission. And so, like, to say that you can, and then when somebody's parent dies from cancer and they're grieving, they have to accept in their head with this ideology that they didn't do it right. And usually
Yeah.
they'll either do that, which I hate for that to happen to a person, or they'll just say it wasn't meant to happen. Of course, I would rather them think that it's not meant to happen rather than beat themselves up over it. But it's quite frequently, often, that's the case, that happens, that people will beat themselves up over it because they thought that they didn't do the ritual right, or they have one little thing wrong, and so they'll reread through all their books, try to get it right. They'll practice every day, hours a day.
Yeah.
I was one of those people.
Yeah, and it puts you in a really bad position because something I also noticed that I would do is like, if I was trying to manifest something, because I was in the law of attraction, all that too, and it wasn't happening, I would suppress. If I was going through something difficult, I wouldn't talk about it. I wouldn't think about
They
it.
say to
I
keep
would just
silent
try.
about it. You'll
Yes, and I
manifest
would
more
try and just
negativity.
put it. Yes, yes, I would try and just think positive thoughts, and it was just a very a very toxic thing. I was bottling up all of this stuff that was going on and putting on a face, putting on a front, because
Fake it till you make it.
yes. Um so let's see. So basically I tried to make it work. I tried to, because I believed that this was what God wanted me to do. Like, if I have these gifts, this is an explanation for it. I wanted to serve him. I wanted to do what God had called me to do, because my mindset is, if God created me for a purpose, for me to fulfill that purpose is the only reason that I'm here. And if I'm not fulfilling that purpose, then what's the point? You know?
Yeah.
And so it didn't take me very long. I wasn't in mediumship very long because I didn't like it. I always felt violated, and I was like, maybe it's something I can visit later. I need to practice other things more. I need to I don't even remember all the terminology anymore, like strengthen my third eye or whatever.
Things like that. Your aura, your energy, your things.
Yeah.
It's a new word in every book.
Yes. Exactly.
I've got like
So,
40 of them over there on the bookshelf.
oh, you do? Oh
Yep.
my.
I've spent through my journey in the new age, which did last for a while. I got into it and got out of it twice, actually. Weirdly enough, but I've spent thousands of dollars into it.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
Oh, I said I'd actually gotten in and out of the occult and new age 2 times over.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I got into like two separate. This kind of goes into like my story, but I was raised in a few different churches, from Presbyterian to Baptist to non-denominational. I never went to a Catholic church at all, other than for like a wedding, I think. Um, but I grew up in that. I had just your standard non-denominational view of things, and the family would go out to a Mexican restaurant afterwards, and it was your typical born-again Christian church. Now, I had an uncle who was viewed as like the most spiritually advanced person in the family. If you had any questions, go to him. And we'd talk deep about things whenever I was a kid, and I was very interested. And I had a few questions that, of course, he couldn't answer that I still bring with me today. He, in a way, inspired me to look deeper into things, but it was more or less I would cross books at the local Hastings at the time, and I'd flip through them. And like I told you, tarot cards would spook me out, but eventually I would start looking into things, and I'm like, you know what? This kind of makes sense. This kind of makes sense. This is the deeper meaning I've been searching for. And so I would look more into it. And at that time, I was like in middle school, and I'd gotten to a practice. I don't remember what practice it was. It was some Tibetan Buddhist practice, but at the time, I developed an imaginary friend that later on I ended up realizing is basically the description of a tulpa. And I have very weird stories about that, which I won't go over today because that's a very long. That'll take an hour all by itself. But I got into that, and I was into the whole balancing my chakras, yoga style things. And then
Yeah.
I got out, and I was a hardcore evangelical conspiracy theorist, Illuminati, satanic reptilian type of Christian through half of my high school life. I wasn't paying attention junior year at all in the back of the class, not because I was goofing off. Well, I'd talk and goof off a lot, but like I was just sitting listening to like the end times or next month, this is what happened at the White House. And I always thought that the world was about to end. And even my grandmother, she raised me to believe that Jesus was going to come back in my time. And so it fit with these conspiracy theories, and they talk about him coming back. And so I was like, what's the point of doing this school stuff if I'm going to be gone here in a couple months, maybe even a year? And so that definitely influenced me in that way. And throughout that, I ended up becoming a flat earther for a couple months. Not even joking about that. My viewers already know about that. But after that, I ended up moving out, getting on my own, and I stumbled across this video on the occult that this guy put forward that was very, very, very convincing. And that's when I delve like head first into the like occult. Like it's not even New Age anymore. Like my closet was designated as a ritual area. I had pillars, an altar with black cloth. I had the whole robe, the candles, the bells, everything. And I'd spend like 3 hours a day in there at least. Still to this day, I can stare at a wall without blinking for minutes at a time because of the practices that I did in that closet at the time. And sometimes I won't notice myself doing it. People at work will be like, "You have not blinked in like 3 minutes," and I'm like, "Oh, my bad." And but it happens when I'm like gazing out. Like if I'm like
Yeah.
daydreaming, I just won't blink, and they're like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "You're not blinking," and I'm like, "Ah." And so that still rolls over from that. But so that was the second time I got back into the occult, and that lasted for a few years until and of course throughout that my God belief had changed. I still believed in the God of Abraham, but I also believed that he had many faces. And so it's why I mentioned to you over Facebook a while back that I literally, by some people's definition, worshipped Mercury. I have family members that say, like, did you really worship Mercury like you did God? And honestly, yes, I did. I really believed in it at the time. And throughout that, I started to get a little confused as I went through the circle of spiritual ideas, only to come back and realize these all can't be, not all of these ideas can be right. Some of them contradict the other. And so I was thinking, but it is possible that all these spiritual ideas could be wrong. It's not a majority of the possibility, but there is still a possibility. But they definitely can't be all right. And so I decided to take a step back because I got to the point that I was like, you know what, I'm willing to change my mind if I end up finding the truth in the end. I started caring more about the truth. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to take a step back and see what evidence I can find for each of these. Because some have evidence, but some also don't. Some have half evidence, you know what I'm saying? Some have an over excessive amount of anecdotal evidence, like when you got astral projection where people are talking about leaving their body. But it was hard because you can't just step back. You can't just choose not to believe something, no matter how hard I tried. With things like that, I like to give an example of love. People like to say that love is a choice. I'm a person that believes that it's not necessarily a choice. And I'm not talking about the necessarily the whole homosexual versus heterosexual thing. I'm meaning just like love, the emotion in general. The people that say that you can choose to love this person or not choose to love this person. I think of it as there's nothing that could happen. There's nothing that my mother could do or any amount of money that anybody could give me for me to stop loving her for 5 minutes. It's impossible. I just couldn't. And so I look at things like that in that light, like same for belief. I can't just stop believing that I'm not talking to you right now. There would have to be like things to convince me. Like if you had walked in my door right now and I looked over and you're right there, that would convince me that I'm not actually talking to you, that somehow this is a dream or something like that. Something would have to happen for me to be convinced.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't just ditch my beliefs at that time, but I did care about the truth of it. And I also still believed in it. And so I was stuck in this cognitive dissonance for a while of just searching and searching and searching for the truth until finally, I don't remember what pinpoints convinced me that, or I guess disconvinced me. I plan on doing a video whenever I can remember all of that. But it got to a point where I was just like, you know what? I actually remember at the time I was getting my hair cut, and I call this my atheist hair because the last time that it was cut was the day that I was sitting there getting it cut, and it looks terrible since quarantine. I've been wanting to shape it up, but I was sitting there getting it cut, and I remember just like kind of looking around, and I looked down at my phone, and I was sitting there thinking, and I was like, I don't believe anymore. And I like really felt it. Like I couldn't tell if it happened right then or the week before, and it just didn't hit me until then. Like it's a very gradual process, but it was at that point that I just realized I don't believe anymore. But I also still cared about these things. That's why I still have all kinds of these books over here, because I mean, I look into them. I talk to believers of not just Christianity and Islam, but also New Age ideas. I'm interested in it. I've grown up in it, and I've spent my whole life caring about it, to the point that, it's like I'm not really good at anything else other than talking about these things. At least I feel like. But that's what led me to where I am today. I guess that's basically my side of the story. I know that it was kind of a tangent in the middle of yours. If you had more to say, go on now.
Okay. It's super interesting. Like, I appreciate your you're searching for the truth and looking at all different aspects of things. I think that's really good. You know, a lot of times people become attached to what they believe, and they don't want to budge, you know. I don't remember where I was in my story.
My bad.
It's okay. It's all right.
I think the last thing you were saying, you were talking about how your mediumship just like wasn't doing much for you at the time. It was just kind of spiraling down.
Yeah, I really didn't like it. I didn't like the spirits. I was like, eh. They made me feel gross. And so I just continued practicing like energy work. I continued practicing reading cards, which I didn't call it tarot card reading. I called it angel cards or
Oh, you had
whatever.
one of those decks.
Yeah, I had like 8 different stacks of them.
Did you have the steampunk cats one? I have to know.
No.
I'm waiting to find somebody that actually bought those. I see them every time that I used to go to the New Age store. There'd be steampunk cat tarot cards, and I was like, "Is anybody gonna actually buy these ones?" I
A
mean,
very specific person.
yeah, it's really interesting to think about steampunk cats. I almost want to go and get them now, just to be like, you know what? I'm the person that finally got the steampunk cat tarot cards.
Yeah, you're the person that you were looking for, right?
All along.
Yep. So I practiced these things for about 5 years, and you know, on and off, it wasn't, I don't know, I like really struggled with it because all throughout my journey I would have people tell me, you know, these things are demonic, these things that they're not of God. And you know, at first I thought that they were just very uneducated. I was like, you know, I'm not a religious person, I'm spiritual. That was my, you know, my thing.
Spiritual, not religious.
Yes. And but then, you know, as I dove deeper into the new age, I just found myself emptier and emptier. You know, I would do yoga, I started yoga in high school. You know, the law of attraction, all that stuff. And I just would feel like even more lost. It was almost like doing drugs in a sense that, you know, you take.
You'd come up, but you'd immediately come right back down.
Yeah,
And keep doing it.
Yeah, and the only way that you can go back up is by doing it again. And then I would end up even deeper of a hole than before. And it was really hard, and I would feel very convicted, like when someone would tell me that, you know, these things are not of God. And I would feel this, like, I would get this pain in my chest. I would feel like, you know, like, what if they're right? What if they're right, you know? I had a lot of different experiences. I had people giving me Bibles. I had like 5 different people, just like, you know, some were discreet about it. Some people
We're praying
weren't.
for you.
Yes, yes. And I would carry them around with me, but I never read them. I had this like book bag that was, you can't see it, but it was kind of big, but I would have one.
I can visualize it.
Yes. So I would have, you know, the Bibles in there and all my new age books. I had my chakra Bible and, you know, all that stuff in there. And I would carry them around with me, but I never read them. I remember I would try and read the Bible and I'm like, this does not make any sense. Like, I don't understand what this is saying. You know, sometimes it did, but then other times it didn't make any sense. And I didn't, it was it was very sharp in some, you know, some parts of it. I was like, dang, like that is brutal, you know? And so I just didn't really understand it. And sorry, I'm like roasting myself in here, but I don't want the wind to be really loud. Is it okay?
Yep, I don't hear nothing.
Oh, all right, cool. Perfect. So Let's see. So there's a guy, I don't know if you know who he is. His name is Steven Bankars.
How do you spell that name?
The last name?
Yeah.
Bancarz.
All right. Judging by the types of thumb. Yes, I know. Oh, I know exactly who this is. Yeah, I remember seeing his video where he was sitting in the car and he was talking about him leaving the occult here. I'm trying to get back to our Skype call. There we go. Yeah, I remember seeing his video. I'm pretty sure he was sitting like in the front seat of his car and he's got like his gauges and I think he's got a beanie
Yeah.
on too. And he's like talking about how he left the occult and things like that. Have you seen that
Yeah.
one?
Yes. So that video. So, all right. So I was living in Colorado at the time. I had started getting invited to church. This was the first time in my life that I was going to like different kinds because I was going to strictly like Catholic when I was growing up. And it was by choice. And I was going with friends. So I was like, oh, look at me. I'm going to church. Like I was excited about it. But at the same time, I was like, I don't know if they want me here because I knew that not everyone, but a lot of people in the church didn't agree with what I was doing, but I was
You knew
still,
what it felt like to view those people, and so when you're on the other side, it's like I remember how I viewed it. Sort of. At least that's how I felt at the time.
yeah, I didn't necessarily view those people that way because I didn't adopt the Bible as truth back then. I believed in God. I didn't really, I didn't understand the gospel. I didn't understand the life of Jesus or anything like that. I didn't understand why they would say that the Bible was the word of God. Like, I didn't understand any of that stuff. So I didn't really judge anyone in that way. I just knew how they would view me if they believed those things, if that makes sense. Like, it wasn't something that, yeah. So, and I would just feel kind of like, ugh. But, because I was still I would feel so convicted. I felt very conflicted, confused, angry, lost, empty, all of those things. And I was tired of people telling me I was a demon worshiper and that I was satanic. I was like, that is rude.
Like
you know?
you're really not going to convince me now.
Yeah, I didn't like it, I don't think anyone really likes it unless that's something that they're like, yeah, I am a
Unless they're
Satan.
an edgy high schooler who wants to be called the spawn of Satan.
Yeah,
I know a few of those. So
yeah, it happens. I wasn't one of those people because I believed that I was serving God, or at least I wanted to be. And so I came home to Montana for a couple weeks around Christmas time in 2018. And I was like, okay, this is my time that I'm going to sort this out because the thing that really confused me was like every person that I spoke to about it would give me a different answer. Some people
yeah,
would say, yes, this is not of God. Some people would say, you have good intentions, so it's okay.
you
And,
get a different answer, and you had no way to reconcile any of them or know which one was the best one and why it
yeah,
was the best one, other than I agree with it.
right. Yeah. And I didn't want to continue in something because I'm like, okay, if these things are not of God, then I'm hurting myself and I'm hurting the people around me by sharing this with them. And I'm disobeying God, which I did not want to do that. And I also, I got to this point because you remember in Steven's video, one of the things that he talked about, well, okay, I'll get to that point. When I came home,
Yeah.
when I came home, I was like, okay, I'm gonna sort this out because I'm like, all right, if Jesus is God, if Jesus is who people are telling me that he is, I can ask him myself. I can ask him the truth. He'll be able to tell me himself. That was the point that I got to because I was tired of asking people because everyone said something different. And so I'm in my room, I'm on my bed, I'm like scrolling on YouTube, and I came across Steven's video on like it's not like the timeline, but you know, where it's just giving you suggested videos.
Yeah.
And it was like from New Age to Jesus, and my heart started pounding. I was like, oh geez, like I don't know. But I knew that if I was afraid to watch it, it was for a reason. Because it's like, if I'm like, I can't be afraid to find the truth, you know, like don't be afraid of that. And so I watched his video, and there was just things he was talking about that I really related to that I'd never heard anyone say. Like he would say, you know, I believe that I was serving God, but why do I feel so empty? And that's what I was experiencing. I felt very, very empty on the inside. I'd have momentary glimpses of like peace and joy, but it was fleeting. And then I would be in a worse position than I was before. And so after I watched his video, it was very beautiful. I was like, whoa. Like, okay, well, like, I'm like, all right, I just need to ask Jesus myself and like really ask him, because I think that sometimes, you know, leading up to that point, I would talk to him, but I wasn't like, there's a point of full surrender where you're like, I want to know the truth regardless of what it means. I remember telling him that I was willing to get hit by a bus if I had to, because I would see people with near-death experience, you know, like I would watch those videos and I would see them finding Jesus and finding God. And so I was like, okay, if I have to die, like, let's go, let's do this.
Savage.
Yeah, I was just at that point. I had to get to a point where I was willing to abandon anything, even if it meant my own life. Because to know the truth and to be willing to die for it is to love the truth. Like, I am willing to die for the truth. And I wasn't willing to die for the new age mindset. I wasn't willing
Yeah.
to die for it, you know?
Yeah,
But
I
I
would
was willing.
never die for the cat steampunk tarot cards.
No,
I just could not do it. Couldn't do it.
that's so funny. I never saw those, but that's quite interesting. So after I watched his video, I'm sitting on my bed, and I was such a mess. Like, just straight up, like every area of my life was a mess. I made a mess out of everything. My family, my friendships, my finances, my mental health, emotional health, everything. I was just at rock bottom. And so I put my hands up as high as I could. I was like, all right, Jesus, like, I guess this is what people do. I don't really know what else to do. And I laid just everything in front of him, like all my sin, all my pain, my suffering, my
Heavy burden.
confusion, my anger, just everything. It was like, you know, I just laid it out, and I was like, all right, like I'm tired of this. I'm tired of feeling like this. I'm tired of running away from you. Like, I want to know the truth. And when I did that, I felt the Holy Spirit. I felt him like coming through the top of my head and down into my heart. And before this point, like in the new age, I felt like my heart was like a black hole. It was very dark. I would try and open it with, you know, eating green food because the heart chakra is green, and doing, you know, yoga poses to open my heart chakra, and using energy work to try and get the pain out and the hurt and the, you know, all of those things. And none of it helped. But in that moment, it was like, the best way that I've heard it described is like a fire that doesn't burn you. And it was like a light switch went off in my heart. It was just like, I felt, and the Bible describes it, and I didn't know, like, I had no idea what being born again was. I didn't know the Holy Spirit. I didn't know any of that stuff, because that's not talked about. Well, at least it wasn't at the Catholic churches that I went to. It was not spoken about. And so the Bible talks about having a heart of stone and God will give you a heart of flesh, right? And it was like, it was the purest love that I've ever experienced in my life. It was true like peace and joy. And it was like in that moment, I knew that that was everything that I'd ever been searching for.
It's
And
like the
it was,
awakening moment.
yes, it was because I'd finally surrendered to him, because I was looking for all the head knowledge and it was just all super confusing. And I didn't know why. I didn't have any of those answers. But when I did that, I just invited, like, not, I don't even want to say I invited him into my life. I gave my life to him. And so then I was like, all right, Jesus, like, that was awesome. I cried for days after that. I felt very heartbroken, in the sense that I hated what I was a part of for a very long time, and I know that was one of your questions. I don't regret it. Sometimes I do. For a long time, I was very, very bitter and hurt and upset with myself, that because I knew when I became to when I started to understand what all those things were and how it went against Jesus and how it went against who he is, it broke my heart. And it made me very sad because I was leading people away from him. And I just recognized my filth. I don't know how else to explain it. And just how wicked my heart was. So from that point forward, I didn't know what any of that meant. I didn't know, like, I didn't consider myself a Christian at that point. I was like, okay, Jesus is real. That's what I know. And then as I went along, I started meeting people who could actually give me a better understanding of what happened to me. They would teach me how to pray. They would teach me how to read the Bible and give me, scriptures on like why these things weren't of God. And so I threw out I threw out so much stuff, like seeing thousands of dollars worth of like
Yep.
books and cards and crystals. I had one of those orgone pyramids. It was actually pretty sweet. It was big too. And I threw that out. I threw out my yoga mat. And I had a lot of zeal without wisdom. So it was a bit destructive in the beginning of my walk. And I'm still learning, but yeah. So in that moment when the Holy Spirit came upon me, I was set free from demonic possession, which I didn't know that that's what was happening to me. It's like being in a crowded room, but I was in my own body. And he set me free from that burden, like from the burden of carrying the weight of my own sin, from the pain, from the having these spirits in my body. Sometimes it felt like I was a backseat driver. Sometimes it felt like I'd have the it makes me sound crazy, but it was my experience. I would have these voices talking to me and stuff, telling me that they were going to destroy me, ruin my life. It was like I was saying it to myself, but anyway, yeah. So in
I could
that
definitely
moment,
relate to that. Did you, so like you said that you kind of regret it, but you also don't in other senses.
yeah.
Because I definitely, I mean, there are minor things that you could say I would regret, or I'm like, I should have done this. But I'd say overall that I don't regret it only because of where it's led me today. But I mean, that's kind of pulling a bias because, I mean, if I was in a worse position, would it be the other way? I don't know. I only ended up this way. But do you think that you found any nuggets of truth within the New Age at all? Because a lot of people will say that there's a nugget of truth in every religion and every spirituality. Do you agree with that?
Um, at this point in this position, I don't, just because, and I
Of
think
what you
that
have
can,
now?
what's that?
Just because of like what you have now, like by comparison?
Yeah, and there's just a lot of things that I found in scripture that go against what the New Age philosophy, what they believe. I'm sure there is, and I think because I'm still healing, I think that my view can be a little, like you said, biased because I grew a hatred for it. And a disgust, because then I started to see just wickedness. I don't really know how else to explain it. There was the key points of the new age faith, or whatever you want to call it, I found to not be true at all. One of the things that I was taught is that everything is love, and it's not. Like there's plenty of examples of things that are not love, that are not kind, that are not good. That there's good in the bad, and there's bad in the good. That there's light and darkness and light, but light and darkness are two separate things.
Exactly. Like some people like to say abuse. There's love and abuse. I would disagree. I think it's more there's pain and abuse. At least from the abuser's side, definitely. Because a lot of people like to say that the abuser, it comes from a seed of love, and I definitely don't agree with that.
Right. No, I don't agree with that either, because the fruit of the Spirit, of the Holy Spirit, and this is something I'm grateful for, because I had tried to be the person that I am now on my own, and I couldn't. I wasn't capable. I still have a lot of growing to do. I'm not like, oh, I'm perfect now. Like,
You did say something a second ago that reminded me of one of the questions that I had to ask, and it was, what do you have to say towards like Christians that mix New Age type of ideologies in with their walk of Christ?
I would encourage them to be humble and to genuinely ask Christ if that's where he wants them to be and things he wants them to do, and to listen to people who were in that lifestyle, and of course you want to use discernment, but you can't, like, the Bible does talk about, and like you were saying earlier about Chreaster people, is like being lukewarm. Jesus says he will spew lukewarm Christians out of his mouth. He would rather you be hot or cold. Either you're with him or you're not. And we can't be, bowing down and worshiping idols and putting our faith into crystals or sage or yoga or what, we don't have to go into like why, all of that, but putting our faith into things that are not God, that's not what he wants. He wants us to put him first and to trust him first and to seek the truth in all things. For me, it was my pride that kept me from giving my life to him, because I wanted to continue. I wanted to be my own God. I wanted to create my own rules. I wanted to do my own thing.
Create your own reality.
Yes, and when I came to Christ, everything in my life, my whole foundation, everything that I did was sin. And I got to a point where I was like willing to give it up because I was in such a terrible place, but it does give a form of pleasure.
Yeah.
So I would encourage them to just listen to people who have been in that position and go all out for Jesus. Like, don't try and justify. I think that's something that we tend to do, is to see how close to the line can I get? How much can I get away with? We don't, it's something that was really convicting to me, was to look at what Jesus did in a different light, because a lot of times people will say like, oh, I'm under grace. Jesus loves me. Like, it's fine. I can do whatever I want.
The whole he died for your sins, so you might as well sin anyways thing.
Yes. And I remember hearing people talk about that, and it would make me cry, because it's like, then you're not loving him. Why would I want to take pleasure in the very things that he died for?
No.
Like, he's my best friend. he is the best friend that I've ever had. And he loved me even when I hated him. Even when I rebelled against him, he still loved me. He still pursued me every day. He suffered a horrible death. It's like, if you imagine, I don't know if you have kids or anything, or maybe
not yet, at least. Not yet.
So just imagine that you have a son and you watch him come into the world, you watch him grow, you watch him develop, you give everything that you have to him, you do anything for him, you love him, and then God asks you to sacrifice him for the sin of the world, for them to be saved. And you have to watch him be brutally beaten, spit on, laughed at. Like you have to watch him go through all of that. And then people just, it's like they're the ones spitting on him when they're like, oh, he loves me, I can I can participate in these sins, I can participate in these things. How would that make you feel to know that you did, like, your son went through that for them, and they're just like stepping.
That definitely wouldn't make me feel good. But also on the flip side, the way that I see that is, I don't understand why you would have an innocent person like basically pay for the crimes of those found guilty. Like if my grandfather was drinking and driving, even if I could go to jail for him for the few nights, I don't understand how that would teach my grandfather the lesson of not drinking and driving again.
Right. So that's a good question. This is actually something that I didn't really understand. The good person to listen to is what's his name? Oh, there's this bird. This is really random. There's this bird, and it was like flying in one spot, just hovering right over here. Anyway,
what's the name? I'll put it down in my notes.
His name is his YouTube channel is Living Waters, and his name is Ray Comfort. That's what it is. He's an evangelist.
Oh, have you ever told a lie?
Yes.
Yes.
That guy.
We used to watch that at the Baptist church. We used to watch his documentaries that he would make.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so a couple weeks ago, I don't know if you know about, oh, wait, you're not in town. I don't know why I was thinking about that for a second, which actually, I think this radio station isn't even Tennessee. I think it's in Virginia. It's called Moody Radio, and they have a radio station down here. It's 97.1. It's called Janet in the Marketplace. My grandmother told me to call that radio station to ask the questions that I had for her because my grandmother couldn't answer them. Oh, excuse me. And so I decided to call the radio station, but I couldn't get in because they had a guest on at the time. And I was like, well, is there a call in for the second hour? Because usually if they have a guest, you can call in the second hour. And I was so excited because I found out it was Ray Comfort on the show 2 weeks ago. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. But they wouldn't let me talk to him. I was like, ah. They're like, yeah, we're not taking calls for this episode. It's going to be just recorded and posted on this weekend. And I was like, ah. But I mean, there's probably a way I could probably even contact him through his YouTube channel.
Yeah, you definitely. Yeah.
I'll have to get him on here one day.
He's great. He's so, like, just gentle and kind, but he's to the point too. He just does it with a smile on his face, which is awesome. So, I don't remember where I was going with that. I don't know, but your question was like, why would somebody innocent have to, like, how would that teach somebody not to sin? And I think that depends on the person. It depends on how they view things. And God, because he is just, so like, Ray Comfort talks about that, as if a judge is good, like, let's say a judge in the court of law, if he's good, he's going to rightly, punish someone. He's going to give them a correct sentence for what they have done. And if they don't, if he lets where it's obvious this man like raped somebody and he just lets him go because he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again, then he's not a just judge. Like then he's corrupt, and we all know that. So
Right.
God is the same way, where he punishes sin because he's holy and because he's good. And so there had to be the correct sacrifice. There had to be the correct, what do you call it? The correct atonement, I think is the word.
I think it is.
Yeah. So for me to see, like, to see somebody that I love and care about to suffer for something that I did hurts me more than me suffering for it.
Absolutely. I definitely think there's something psychologically behind that too. Like I have seeing somebody in like excruciating pain, like bleeding out of their side type of pain. I mean, it doesn't even have to be that. Of course, they're hurting way more than we are watching them, but it's definitely very painful to go through seeing somebody doing that, or going through that.
Yeah.
You don't even have to feel the pain to feel the pain that they're feeling. It's not
Yeah.
exactly the same, but it's still there.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's weird too, because on the flip side, now that I think about it, like if somebody's happy, you can be in an upset mood and not feel that happiness at all. It's like pain just has pain is almost contagious, it seems.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think we're more geared towards that. Like our minds are more geared towards negativity and things like that. And I think, for me, that's something that I didn't understand until I met Christ myself, until I gave my life to him. I didn't understand, and I didn't have an appreciation for what he did for me. And that makes me just like, the closer I get to him, the more that I just want to love him and to know more about him and to not find pleasure in the things that he doesn't. I want to love what he loves, and I want to hate what he hates. And like, I want to be like him. I want to love like him. I want to walk like him.
You don't see
I,
things like he does.
yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I definitely have a couple more questions before we wrap this up. Mainly, most of them were answered throughout just us talking. I imagine that was going to happen in the first place, anyways. But two that are kind of back to back. One is, has any of your older practices spilled over into the way you practice Christianity today? And then also, if so, or I guess not if so, but also, are there any favorite practices that you had back in the day, or something that you could kind of twist or turn that could still be useful to people today?
Yeah, I mean, I can see a parallel to a lot of those practices where, like I would meditate for hours. And so now I meditate on the word of God, and I meditate on his
Yeah.
promises. And I definitely enjoyed meditating. It was very relaxing. But I think we have to be careful with what we're meditating on,
Mm-hmm.
and when we meditate on the word of God, it strengthens our minds. And let's see.
That is one thing that I respect religious people over spiritual people about. We were talking about in like law of attraction, spiritual ideas, like they're the pivot. The way that I view it is that whenever you change that and you're meditating on the Word of God, you aren't the pivot necessarily anymore. It's now the Bible, or if you're Muslim, it's obviously the Quran. And I like that a whole lot better than making the individual. And that's not me saying that I'm against individual responsibility and accountability. I know somebody in the comments is going to twist that way, but that's not what I'm trying to say. What I am trying to say is that I do like that better than making yourself the pivot point, and so you're at fault for all bad, or you are at fault for all good. And I think that's more or less arrogance in a way, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah, because then you're solely responsible for everything. And we do have a level of responsibility. There are things that are in our control, but then there's things that are outside of that. And I think that's important to know the difference. I can't remember what your question was.
It was, has any of your, I basically kind of fused two of them together. Is, has any of your older practices spilled over into the way you practice Christianity today? But you basically answered that. And then I said, and then the other one just says favorite practices, question mark.
Oh, yeah. I did enjoy practicing yoga. It always made me feel really good afterwards. I think what would spill over is just having discipline to exercise every day, to move your body, and seeking
That's
out
something that you could get with the New Age, or you could technically get that without the New Age, though.
Yes.
You don't have to pull that into there. It's not exclusive to it.
Yeah. There's all different kinds of exercise and stuff, and I would just say as a whole, just searching for truth, because that's why I went into the New Age, because I wanted a sense of spirituality and acceptance, and and all of those things. I wanted to find that, and so I did a lot of research, and I did a lot of looking into different things. So yeah.
So to basically wrap this all up, so you know what it feels like to ditch certain ideas and leave certain ways of life and practicing and different lifestyles like that. Even though you're still growing in your own path right now, and you're probably going to have some of the same views and some different views, do you see yourself ditching any of the views that you have today within the future at all? I'm not meaning your beliefs, but some of the ways that you look at those beliefs.
That's an interesting question. So are you saying, like, are there beliefs that I have now that I know that I will ditch, or is it like
Do you
I'm willing?
like more willingness, like open-mindedness? Because I know some people that would say, nope, I'm going to be exactly the same. Like me today, even though I'm an atheist, I don't know if I'm going to be an atheist forever. I mean, I'm pretty sure tomorrow in the morning I'll wake up as one, but I could totally not be. Who knows?
Yeah.
But there's definitely other atheists that I've met, and they're like, I could never be religious, this and that, yada this. I'm open-minded, and so it's more or less the question between willingness and open-mindedness, and which I imagine from our talk so far, I can imagine your answer would be, yes.
Yeah, yes. I would say that I am narrow-minded in a way, just because the Bible does talk about how the path to heaven is narrow, and I there's nothing more that I want than to be with Christ forever, because I love him so much and I'm so grateful for him. However, there are yes, I am open to, if I'm stuck in like a legalistic mindset or a religious mindset, or just something that isn't true, something's a sin that I've been doing that I'm not
Little
aware.
minor beliefs and the things you think.
Yeah, like the core of it, no. The only way that that could happen is if the Holy Spirit was not residing in me anymore. and but he's built a home in me, and so
That's not
um
happening.
no.
I got
No,
you.
I mean, unless I chose to walk away, but that I don't I it's everything that I've ever wanted, so I don't want to do that. So
I'll feel you on that. Well, it was great having you on today. I definitely would like to have you on sometime again. Probably not soon, as I'm really busy and I'm about to be out of this house pretty soon here in a month and a half. But it was nice, productive talk, I think, and I hope you'd enjoyed it for now.
yes, I did, and I would like to hear more about your how you came to be an atheist, and I would like to, maybe I can interview you next time.
You interview me next time. Okay.
Yes.
I'd be
Yeah.
interested in that.
It would. Cool. Well, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks for being on. And with all that being said, I have to say I really enjoyed that talk, and now I know a lot of my commenters are going to be like, Hayden, you're going to fuck around and end up converting somebody to Christianity. And if that be the case, I'm fine with that. I do this because I want people to be open into the, what you could call the marketplace of ideas. Whether you agree with them or not, I think ideas should be heard, they should be discussed, they should be spoken about. I definitely grew up in a form of Christianity where you kept on the hush-hush if you had any outsider opinion. And so I definitely want to do more of these. I definitely am held up with how many people are about to be on. But if you are interested, feel free to hit me up, and I'll definitely consider it. And maybe we can do something in the future. Either way, if Hailey hits me back up soon and has anything I can plug in for, I'll be leaving that in the description below for all of you to check out. Either way, I hope you enjoyed. And take it easy.